Hi and welcome back to Inside Line for the first time in 2011. It's been a pretty manic start to the year with obviously the Detroit Motor Show and a bunch of new model launches for what's shaping up to be a huge year. But this week we're talking about the latest Jeep luxury off-roader as well as the latest Toyota quality issues. First though, it's a four-wheel drive Ferrari, the FF. Now Jez, this is not what you would have expected from Ferrari.
That's right, four-wheel drive, but not a four-wheel drive.
So not an off-roader.
It's not an off-roader. It's a replacement for the 612 Scaglietti. So it's a Grand Tourer still, but the difference is instead of being rear-wheel drive, it's now all-wheel drive. So it's a Ferrari you can, take to the snow.
Yeah, and off-road.
That's right.
Potentially. The big thing with this, obviously Ferrari's supposed to look super sexy, drop-dead gorgeous from the first time you see it. This car in profile is not what you'd call that.
Yeah, I think we had the same thoughts on a car this reminded us of, and it was the BMW M3 Coupe, which was nicknamed the bread van. So, yeah, not a conventional looking Ferrari, that's for sure. Indeed,
and look, let's face it, they call it a four-wheel drive, but even the snow or dirt, is anyone really going to take it off-road?
Unlikely, I'd say.
It's 900 grand, for God's sake. It's a lot of money for a car. But now really heading off-road, and Jez, you've been driving the latest from Jeep, the new Grand Cherokee.
That's right. It's a brand new Grand Cherokee. It's a bit bigger than before, smarter interior. One of the big statements is that it's much cheaper than before. Now starts from $45,000 instead of sort of closer to 60. Comes with lots of equipment. And look, we know that Jeeps traditionally they go really well off-road. But the difference with this,
not the flashiest things on road.
Not the flashiest on road, but this one goes a lot better. It's actually got a decent ride and goes around corners pretty well. So
is it a Grand?
Well, it's much grander. I mean, the interior, US, interiors, they're typically pretty rubbish.
They've been like garden furniture, yeah, and up against things like BMWs. It hasn't worked.
Yeah, well behind the Europeans, well behind the Japanese. But now, you've got things like leather dashes in there, some soft touch plastics, and quite a sort of good design.
So a new beginning for a car company that has been struggling a bit.
Well, they have been struggling, the Chrysler Group particularly, but Jeep as a brand in Australia is, it's still going really strong. Sales are up 43% last year. They just need Dodge and Chrysler to catch up.
To kickstart as well. Interesting stuff. Well, finally, Toyota is back in the news for the wrong reasons yet again. This time due to potential faults with its sound systems when they're hooked up to an iPhone or iPod with a recent software update. Now, Jez, this doesn't render the car useless, but it renders a part of the sound system useless and is really not what Toyota needs at this time.
No, and obviously, I mean, the last year to 2 years for Toyota, it's just been a real mess of recalls and that. This one perhaps not so serious, but I mean, it's certainly serious for people that enjoy their music.
Well, it's an inconvenience, but the broader issue for me is that, there's a lot of... The car industry generally is behind the pace in terms of adopting some of these latest technologies. Consumer electronics are advancing at a massive pace. All of a sudden, this is something that it's a third-party software has potentially impacted what's in the car. Now, imagine that if that happens to a control system on the car, be it the brakes or the engine control unit or something like that. It's got pretty big implications.
Yeah, and I think we've certainly seen in the last few years, it's electronics that are failing in cars, when decades ago it was mechanicals. So they're now solid, but electronics not so much.
Yeah, well, we'll see how Toyota handles this one. Well, that's it for Inside Line this week, and until next week, stay tuned to all things motoring here at Drive.com.au. And don't forget to read our exclusive celebrity column, including some great reads from the former Stig Ben Collins, US talk show host Jay Leno, and AC/DC frontman Brian Johnson. Catch you next time.